Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your technical critic, and it's time for my review of Legend of Korra, Episode 6 of Season 4, The Battle of Zaofu. Not much of a battle per se, more of a duel between the Avatar versus Kuvira, and my god, it was epic. But before I get into the review, I'm going to ask you, as always, to like, favorite, subscribe, share, and most importantly, this is the important part. Are you listening? Good, you're listening. Leave a comment down below, because this is not just a review, this is a discussion of The Legend of Korra. If you are as big a fan of Legend of Korra as I am, or bigger, I know that you have interesting, intelligent thoughts to say. Leave them down below. At the very end of this review, we have a discussion section. All of your thoughts, all of your feelings, anything you say or post gets placed in that review. And it is normally a very interesting conversation because what you have to say matters, and I enjoy reading them every single time. Alright, so now that business is out of the way, let's get started. I will warn you, there are spoilers, obviously, because this is a review. So if you haven't seen the episode, what are you doing? Go watch the review, come back, and then we can all have some fun. So, as I said in the last episode review, they have been taking compilations, collages if you would, of other stories and mixing them together to essentially make this particular season of Avatar. I don't like it, but I have to say that they're doing it extremely well. This episode was just wow. If you watch my reaction video, I sat there naming scenes, literally naming scenes and lines that they have used. However, in the context of the show, I don't know, in any other show, it would really, really bother me. And here's the thing, I've seen so many films just over my lifetime and as a movie critic, that for someone like me, it breaks the suspension of disbelief. But going back and watching it, not as a reviewer, just as someone who enjoys the show, if I was not a critic, I would say that this was just amazing. The way that they presented the entire episode, I swear to you, it could have been a season finale. And it's just the way that they had the two storylines going at once, and this is something I've never liked about the Avatar series, and it bothers me forever. It's the juxtaposition between the A storyline and the B storyline. The A storyline being that you have Korra, you have Kuvira. The two of them are facing off against each other for the fate of Zaofu. And on the other hand, you've got Bolin and Varric, who are facing off against Batar, and they're trying to basically stop him from getting Spirit Vine technology. These are two stories that I've seen so many times. Like, just watching the battle between Avatar Korra and Kuvira, I keep coming back to this because I honestly think I have to make the comparison. The battle for Zaofu, in the movie Troy, there is a scene where Prince Paris is going to fight Menelaus, Agamemnon's brother, and the plan is, okay, I'm going to fight him, I'm going to try and beat him, and if I beat him, then the city of Troy will be safe from the army. They have to leave, and the difference between the two of us is done. That's essentially what happens here. Paris has his ass handed to him, and unfortunately, so does Korra. However, they played in such a different way, whereas Paris is this very spoiled prince who's had everything just handed to him. Korra is legitimately hurt. She has severe nostalgia issues, and this is what's causing her to not be on top of her game, not be the Avatar that everyone expects her to be. Throughout this entire episode, I was yelling at the screen, just kill her. This is painful to watch. And it truly was. To see a character that you have come to love just have and expect so highly of, just have everything that they stand for just decimated. is truly jarring. It's one of those things that just makes you want to lose faith. But you know what? The way that they did it, I'm honestly interested to see where they take it from here. Does Korra recover in time to stop Kuvira? Does Kuvira actually end up beating Korra? Because, spoiler alert, she damn near kills her. If it was not for the intervention of Jinora, Deus Ex Machina, she literally would have had her throat slit. I kid you not. The opening of this episode, if you're wondering, is from the story of Genghis Khan. And actually the majority of this episode has to do with the story of Genghis Khan. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, Kuvira represents many different dictators throughout history, and I think that each episode they're trying to showcase a different one. This episode was the Mongols, and one that I'm going to leave for the very end, but so stick around. In terms of who the Mongols were and what they stood for, it was they always did this. They had a great show of strength. They would take over at the entire area around the city and then basically say, look, if you don't surrender, we will destroy you, which is essentially what Kuvira is doing here. And on top of this, and the hint that really gives it away, Genghis Khan had a great tent, a gigantic tent, a tent of magnificent proportions. And it was this really, really great showpiece. However, he didn't sleep in it. He slept in an auxiliary tent somewhere on the other side of camp. Why? Because a big ostentatious tent, of course, people are going to come and they're going to try and assassinate you inside of it. He must have downed at least 15 different assassination attempts just because of that one trick throughout his entire lifetime. And it worked. It worked extremely well. And the attack of Su Yin versus Kuvira, the way that they did it, is just so reminiscent of that. And speaking of which, let's get into the character analysis. Now, I've heard a lot of people go on and on and on about, well, Kuvira is a good villain, Kuvira is a bad villain. If you want my opinion on it, I think Kuvira is actually a pretty good villain. Now, hear me out, people who do not like Kuvira. If you look at the way she plays her enemies, she's always going for the legitimate way. When we're first introduced to her, she's doing all this stuff diplomatically. She's got contracts for her army. She's bringing food. She's showing strength. She's doing everything the correct way. But she's a master of subterfuge. And this is one of the things that I do not think we have ever seen in any of the other enemies. I mean, even going back to Avatar Airbender, the enemies that we had were always grand, large enemies. It was very obvious that they were evil simply by their actions. Kuvira, it's very obvious she's evil, but it's not obvious that she's evil by her actions. If you were to look at her actions, and through the objective lens, she's not evil, she's just manipulative. The evil part comes from what happens after, the intention that goes along with that. And that's something very different. I mean, let's take probably one of the only other powerful female villains that we have ever seen, Lady Azula. Lady Azula, my love, how I miss you so much. Azula was not a subtle villain. She was a master manipulator, but she was completely out in the open about it. Let's take the fall of Ba Sing Se, which this episode, quite frankly, is relatively comparative to. If we take the fall of Ba Sing Se, she goes in undercover as a Kyoshi warrior. But after that, she is completely out in the open about her intention. She goes straight to the Dai Li. She goes straight to Long Feng and she's like, look, we're going to overthrow the king, and this is how we're going to do it. If it was Kuvira, I feel like it would have played out exactly the way that we just saw it in this particular episode. She is extremely diplomatic. She gives Zaofu every single chance, and then it's when Su Yin. She waits for Su Yin to make the mistake, and that's when she's like, okay, you know what? I gave you the proper chance. I'm the one who's in the good here. You're the bad guy. She is such a master manipulator while keeping everything just hidden between that very thin veil. And that's why I think she's a really good villain. Because if you look at any of the other villains, Amon, Unalaq, what's his name? Zahir, I'm sorry. But if you look at Zahir, Unalaq, Amon, they are completely out in the open about their villainy. Sure, they've attached their villainy to a good cause. Amon, hey look, I just want everything to be equal, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go after Bender's good, bad, innocent, neutral, whatever. Didn't matter. Well, he's clearly evil. His actions say it all. If you look at Unalaq, well, I'm really here to unite the water tribes and to bring the spirits back into the world. But what is he actually doing? He's using dark spirits and armies to conquer his own people. He started a civil war. Like, how much more evil can you get? He monologues. He's wearing a top hat, for Christ's sake. He might as well be. And a twirly mustache. Look at Zahir. Zahir is just bad. You don't even know what his motivations are. He is just bad. He is just a horrible badass. That you're like, oh man, he's clearly evil, but he's so cool. And it's only once you learn his intention that it's like, well, you know what? He has this weird view of the world, this really pseudo-narcissistic view of the world. That's like, you know what? Everything would be so much better if I didn't run things, but you know what? Everybody else didn't run. There was no one in charge, and we could just do whatever we pleased. That is pretty much his worldview. He doesn't even bother to hide it. It's just, oh wow, just wow. Kuvira is not any of that. She is, take all that, package it together in something that's ordered and focused, but it has this self-righteousness to it that you just cannot deny. I mean, if you look at the world leaders, like, let's even go all the way back to the coronation. What was the plot that President Raiko was laying down? He said, look, yes, technically speaking, Prince Wu will be King Wu. He will be in charge of everything. But we're going to have a council of hand-picked advisors. And when he says hand-picked, he means hand-picked by us. Hand-picked by the leaders of the Fire Nation, hand-picked by the leaders of the Water Nation, hand-picked by Republic City, who is going to run everything in their favor. It is the definition of a puppet kingdom. I swear to you. And when Kuvira sees this, she's like, nope. You're clearly trying to manipulate us. Crush. This man has no authority. He had no authority in the first. He was never going to have any authority if you honestly think on it. If Prince Wu had made it to the throne of Ba Sing Se, would he have had any authority other than the fact that he is the figurehead of the Earth Kingdom? No. It would have all been in his advisors, and they would have all been controlled from Republic City. So really, when you look at it, Kuvira is in the right to say, look, we are the Earth Empire. You stay out of our business, because you've clearly got your you clearly want to sink your claws into us and use us. And then when you look at just the siege of Zaofu, it's like, look, which by the way is an allegory for the fall of Alexandria, the fall of Athens, the fall of Constantinople. You pick a city, pick one of the ancient cities. I guarantee you, even if we go back to the Mongol reference, when Genghis Khan invaded China, the first time and the second time, the entire reasoning behind it was, look, they've put us at odds against each other. The Chinese were masters of manipulation. Like, okay, well, you know what? This Mongol tribe will fight that Mongol tribe, and we will control everything simply by making everybody chaos. So when Genghis Khan went through went through the Mongol steppes and united everybody, and then came to China. It was like, look, they've been hoarding riches. They've been hoarding technology. All of these things that they supposedly promise us: peace, prosperity, blah 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 blah. Guess what? If they won't give it to us, we're going to take it by force. And they did. And when Genghis Khan went to a city, he did order the walls to be torn down. So similarly, at the very end of this episode, when we hear Kuvira go start dismantling the domes, it's a callback. It's a callback to all those times in ancient history when that's happened. And speaking on the ending, when you look at Batar and his father, it reminds me of an old movie I saw, a really old movie. It's not about the. Actually, you know what? I could be wrong. There could be a Nazi movie about this, but you know what? It would not make a difference. Let me explain the plot. The father and mother, they're communists, and they're living in Spain at the time. They're fighting against Franco, who is the fascist dictator, the imperialist fascist dictator, coming through and conquering town by town, city by city, conquering the Republic of Spain, the Communist Republic of Spain. The son is a Francoist, and basically he does not like what he sees his father saying, so he joins with the Francoists, and basically it's the two sides fighting against one another. And finally, when Franco reconquers Madrid, and basically he's standing up there giving a speech, and then afterwards everyone is supposed to salute him and sing his praises. The father and the brother, he has a brother who's an artist. The father and the brother are both standing there in the crowd, and they absolutely refuse to do it. So the son is there. The son is by Franco's side. What he does is he literally storms towards them, and there are guards that are coming to grab these two because they're political dissenters. You can't allow that. And he literally goes, "Look, we won. You do what I told you to in the beginning." And basically, his father looks at him, and before he and his brother are dragged off to be shot, he basically looks at his son and says, "My son, I'm so disappointed in you." And then, of course, they take him away, and you don't hear the bullets fired, you don't see it, but you know, dissenters, bang bang, they're dead. And basically, it's just him standing there, left alone. Everything, all of his high, lofty ideals that he's been working for are just juxtaposed to what he expected to happen and what actually happened. And that's what that scene really was. That's what that recalled back to. And finally, going back to the very last scene of, well, penultimate scene of this episode, really. What we have with Kuvira playing with that meteor, I racked my brains for days, literally days, hours I spent, just thinking, what the heck is that scene? Because I've seen it before, I've seen it before. And finally, I was upstairs, I was cleaning my room, and I said to myself, well, you know what, she has to be one of the great villains. I mean, is it Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? No. Is it Two-Face? Well, he used to play with a coin, but I don't think that's it. I mean, for all I know, it could possibly be, oh, that's it! Magneto! I swear to you, this is true. One of the X-Men movies, I cannot recall because I saw it so long ago. Magneto is playing with like something in his hand. He's busy manipulating it, using his evil powers of magnetism. Someone is flipped. Someone is flipped from the side of the X-Men to the League of Super Evil, or whatever they're called, and he's playing with it, and they're basically like, well, are you ready to help us completely destroy them? And is it that woman? I do not. The one who can teleport. I don't recall. I think it might have been. I honestly think it might have been. Oh, what is her name? The blue skin woman. Oh, God damn. I don't know. I can Google it, but I'm not going to. So yeah, I think it was when she flipped. I think that's where that scene is from. I spent so much time recalling. It's like, okay, finally, I know who she is. Kuvira is Magneto. She is Magneto. Kuvira has gone from Hitler to Franco to Genghis Khan, and now she's Magneto. That is where we are going in terms of Legend of Korra. In terms of Korra's story, where her PTSD, where her nostalgia is going to take her, her battle nostalgia, I don't know. I'm very interested to see what happens. Kuvira, she has Zaofu. I know what happens now. If this was any other time period, rape, murder, looting, and then back to Ba Sing Se for the celebration party. That's it. It'll probably happen off screen. I don't want to say that's what's going to happen, but But it's implied. It's heavily implied. It's happened every single time. And after that, March on Republic City. I mean, they're going to try and rebuild the Spirit Bomb. That plot line, actually. Surprise, surprise, another movie. It comes out of the Cold War era. They capture a scientist who was actually being forced by the communists to build a weapon. And then he's captured by the capitalists, and he's being forced by them to build a weapon. And in the end, he ends up blowing up the train that they're working on. So it's directly lifted from that. I mean, even some of the lines, like they may have been turned for Avatar purposes, but quite frankly, that's what I recall. It's hard having seen these many movies. You're breaking it up for me. Stop copying. Although I have to say, the art style and the director, you guys, it just goes to show. Writing can be horrible and patchy and just collaged together the way it is, but the directors for these episodes and the artists for these episodes really pull it together. And honestly, this could be a match for Season 3. I'm not going to say it's the best season of Avatar we've had so far, because quite frankly, I think that's still reserved for Season 3. Could it? Possibly. The season's only half over, and this is the last season of Avatar we are ever going to have. Do I still think Korra's going to go out Iron Giant style? Yes, I do. And that is my review. That's everything I think on this episode. That's everything I think is going to happen coming up. Stay tuned for the discussion. I will see you there. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is the discussion portion of our review. Welcome, if you're brand new, or if you've done this for a while, glad to have you back. As always, if you haven't seen the review and you skipped to this part, I suggest you go back and watch it so that you can have some context for what I'm about to say and the topics we're about to discuss. Now, let us begin. Our very first comment comes from Anaf Ismail Ibir. He says, or she says, I'm not sure, "What's with the mask?" Alright, this is 2 weeks running. I'm going to refer back to not my last Legend of Korra review, the Legend of Korra review previous to this one. Yeah, so go back by 2, and you've got the review that explains it all. But to put it basically, same reason that people use pictures and avatars that are not themselves for whatever they're doing online. It keeps my anonymity. Also, my face is so ugly, if you actually saw what it looked like, you would turn into a clicker. Google that reference. Anyways, moving on. Juan Rodriguez. Hello Juan, nice to have you as always. He comments, "I'm amazed of how many stories you know about books or movies. I salute you." Thank you, my dear sir. You're an intelligent man, and I salute you back. Now, about this episode. It was good, but you're right. We should be worried. For a moment, I thought we are into the finale of the series, but no, not yet. Also, I called it that Su Ying chick is outwent. What? Sorry, that Su Yin chickened out when Tenzin and company wanted her to take over, but she refused, and Kuvira lost her faith in her and decided to get her hands dirty in uniting the whole Earth Kingdom. Suyin, so far, is doing the wrong decisions, and they will get captured by Kuvira anyway. But if Kuvira takes Zaofu now, then what? I don't see the story going forward after this event. What do you think of what will happen if this comes to pass? Well, Juan, what I think is going to come to pass is, one, she will definitely take Zaofu. We know that simply by going back and watching the series trailer. Two, just based on what we've seen in terms of the trailer, we know that Korra ends up back in Republic City. So she's going to have to end up thwarting some kind of attempt on either Prince Wu's life or some sort of attack that's going to happen in Republic City later on. That's what I think is going to happen. Also, we're going to have to see Korra learn to deal with her post-traumatic stress disorder and try to come to terms with how to defeat Kuvira in terms of the United Earth Empire. That's what I think is going to happen. And as for chickening out, I don't think Suyin actually chickened out. I think what she saw was a situation that she was not willing to handle. She's very isolationist. She does represent the old isolationist China or the old isolationist Japan. Because remember, Avatar has always been very based in Asian history and Asian mythology. So if we're looking at that, I would say that that's what she represents, and what we're going to see is the fall of that in terms of being brought into the greater empire, and that's where that storyline is going to go. I don't think she was chickening out. I just think that she was trying to stick to her look. I do not want to get involved. This is a messy situation. Kuvira, on the other hand, saw an opportunity. She thought that she was doing the right thing, and, well, the road to hell is paved with the intentions of honorable people. So, that's the situation. That's the way I see it. It's unfortunate, however, it's also turning out to be one of the better seasons of Avatar that we have had. Quite frankly, this could possibly make up for Season 2. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Season 2 is a horrible, horrible thing that exists. But you never know. This could be the straw that breaks that camel's back. Alright, good comment. Moving on, the real Bucky. Glad to have you back, Bucky. You've been missing for quite a while. He says, have you noticed this? If you go to the Nickelodeon website, there are crossover games involving multiple Nicktoon characters. The Ninja Turtles, Sanjay and Craig, SpongeBob, etc. However, I've noticed that Korra was never included in those games. It's like Nickelodeon is intentionally leaving her out of the games that we have all the other characters from the other shows. In fact, Korra has only 3 games on her page on Nick's website. I think this proves that Nickelodeon cares little for Korra in general. Wouldn't you think so? Well, that plus all the other evidence that we have that Nickelodeon doesn't care about Legend of Korra. To quote Soylent Green, the evidence is overwhelming. I mean, look, this was a cash grab from the start. They didn't even bother disguising it. And when it went south, what did they do? They said, okay, we're going to give this as much money or as little money as it needs to simply finish, and then we are never going to touch it again. And quite frankly, I think the writers are going to end the Avatar cycle simply so that they cannot be drawn back into this. Those are my feelings, and that's what I think on it. I mean, I've said many times Nickelodeon doesn't care about Korra. They've proven it many times. Nickelodeon does not care about Korra. If the Legend of Korra video game is anything to go by, then again, Nickelodeon does not care about Korra. That's basically it. Alright, moving on to Knife Inc. Reviews comments. Now for Knife Inc.'s comments. Knife Inc. is a reviewer online. I've had the extreme honor and pleasure of having a very long and, quite frankly, extremely interesting talk about The Legend of Korra and the entire Avatar series with her. We were actually supposed to do a podcast together. However, it went south simply because we were not able to record it, someone was sick, and everything collapsed after that. However, it is my hope that she will honor us again with her presence when we are able to get the podcast up and running again, if that in fact is possible. However, she does extremely good reviews. Probably for each of these discussions, I've included her review and my commentary on her review in this discussion section, and I'm happy to do so again. Alright, so, as always, I'm not going to give you exactly what she said. I'm simply going to give you my commentary on what she said. If you want to hear her review, it's going to be linked down in the description below. I would put it here in an annotation. However, YouTube does not like off-site links. I don't know how to do that, so I'm not my technical producer. Alright, so let us begin. My first point is that she described Vitar Jr. as Percy Weasley, and quite frankly, describing him as Percy Weasley in my mind is not only scary accurate, but it is extremely jarring to me. Because up till the point that you said that, I was looking at him from all these different points of view. It's like, okay, well, he's borrowed a little bit of this character from that movie, or he's borrowed a little bit of that character from this movie. But as soon as she said Percy Weasley, the whole glass house, which I had managed to cobble together, just down, broken and shattered, and I was scrambling to pick up the pieces. I mean, honestly, I had to wait several days before I forgot the comparison, simply so that I could do my review with Vitar as this particular archetype from several stories that I've seen. The rebellious young person who is completely disrespectful to their parents in that particular sense and takes physical action against that. I mean, yes, Percy Weasley is the embodiment of that. And if we're going to talk Harry Potter, which that's an entire another can of worms, J.K. Rowling went and copied a whole bunch of other stuff and then stuck that in her books. So the fact that Percy Weasley, when boiled down, is all of those characters in one particular archetype, I'm not surprised, and wow, you are crazy good at catching that. Moving on to the fight between Korra and Kuvira. In terms of the duel, personally, I felt that it was very well done. They showed that Kuvira is extremely good at what she does. Probably one of the best benders since Toph. And since the next episode is being called Reunited, I'm hoping for one of three things. One, and this is the most obvious one, Korra and Asami reunited. Come on, there are no Korra fans left. That ship sailed a long time ago. Number two, and more importantly, the reuniting of what's left of Team Avatar. You're going to have Asami and Mako. Obviously, Mako is going to be in the capital, because where else would Prince Wu be? Asami's there. Korra's there. That's the reuniting, I suppose. Bolin, I suppose he and Vark are going to try and make their way to Republic City, and all of them are going to come back together. You never know. You never know with these things. So I think that's what that's referring to. The third point, and I really do not think that this is possible, but if Lin and her mother, if Lin and Toph are to come back together, and then they team up to save Suyin, I would be the happiest person on earth. I truly would. Because barring Nickelodeon showing Korra and Asami have an actual relationship together the way that she had with Mako, yeah, that's my second and even more unlikely hope. And speaking of Toph, right? Speaking of Toph, I feel like the training session that went on between Toph and Korra was, quite frankly, foreshadowing for what we saw here in this episode. Korra has never really been good at earthbending. She's either a waterbender or a firebender. We occasionally see her use air, but for what it's worth, earthbending does not seem to be her forte. However, if I was going to make a comparison, and I've already made this comparison, the duel between Paris and Menelaus and this one, Paris is completely helpless despite his princely status. The loss, however, it just feels so similar. I honestly feel like I was watching a copycat, and please, do this for me. Go on Netflix, rent it, go to the library and borrow it, whatever you have to do. get a copy of Troy and just sit. Give yourself a break from whatever you're doing, 2.5 hours, whatever. Watch it, please. Even if you have to watch it in parts, watch it and tell me if I'm crazy. I swear to you, these two things bear side-by-side comparison. Even the rescue of Korra, I feel like it bears side-by-side comparison. And tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm right. I'm extremely interested to hear what you have to say on that. Okay, in terms of Korra reconnecting to her past lives, you've been speculating on that. If that did happen, I would be very pleased. I mean, I really do miss their ability to intervene. I mean, despite reopening the spirit portals, the spirits themselves really don't play that great a role in terms of the Korra episodes. I mean, even in season 2, which was named Spirits, the spirits were really a side story to what was supposed to be this wonderful climax that we never actually got. Season 3, the fallout from that was being seen, but again, that was a plot that was shoved to the side. This, yes, Korra was slightly guided by the spirits in Korra alone. However, really being able to reconnect with her past lives, I do think would help her severely, and I think that if they do have her reconnect, it would make it just feels, it would just make the show feel better. I mean, in Airbender, the spirits were an integral part to the story. Avatar Roku, Avatar Kyoshi, they were all an integral part in helping Aang figure out what he had to do as the season went on. Even the spirit of the ocean, the spirits of the dragons, the original Fireband, the lady of the lake, the lady of the water, all of these things intervened, and it really did remind you, yeah, you know what, you have this greater world. That's not just this one particular story, it is the entire world around it. So I do think that, honestly, if we see her reconnect with her past lives, that would be great. Now, in terms of Kuvira, I do feel that they're just trying to paint her as the villain, but I honestly think that she is a good villain. I know how you feel. I know how you feel about her. But I recall a very long time ago in a TV show called Recess that, to quote the main character TJ, the bad guys are the ones who break all the rules, but they still win on technicalities. So I really do think that's what Kavir is doing. She's disguising everything she does underneath this veil of strength and leadership, and she's really painting herself as being in the right. I mean, like I said, think back to the coronation. Think back to what we just saw in this episode. Kuvira, why would she concede to the weak-willed puppet of Republic City? I mean, to President Riker, she's essentially saying, look, I've beaten you at your own game for control of the Earth Kingdom. What are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can't do about it, because he and all the other leaders, technically speaking, they're all in the wrong. I mean, why else would they send Su Yin to go and talk to her? They know that they can't go and face Kuvira. What are they going to say? Hey, Kuvira, look, we know that you just declared yourself essentially Queen of the Earth Kingdom. We would not like that to be the case, because we want to secretly control it using Prince Wu and all of his advice. They know that they can't go up and say that, and quite frankly, it was very good of her to do so. So, saying that Kavir is a bad villain and just villainous for the sake of being villainous, there actually seems to be a point and purpose behind her, and I'm very glad for that. I'm very glad that we're seeing her as this villain. Also, all female. Let's take a look at it. Who's the wise old master? Toph. Who's our two favorite characters? Asami and Korra. Who's our villain? Badass Kuvira. This really is the rise of the women, and I'm glad to see that. I truly am. I do think that it's going in the right direction. I mean, that whole thing with, hey, Korra's not going to test well because she's a girl, and they showed it to a screen full of boys, and it's like, hey, yeah, she kicks ass. It's like, yeah, you know what? She does kick ass. That's why we enjoy the show. But also, the story seems to be going somewhere. And, well, I'm glad that it is the way it is. I mean, honestly, a fourth male villain probably would have seemed extremely. I'm not sure what the female version of misogynistic is. Is it? But that's probably the way it would have seemed. I don't want to sound like misogynist, but that's probably the way it would have been seen. I mean, I do enjoy seeing Kavir. I do enjoy seeing Korra, and I enjoy seeing all these strong female characters take the lead in a show for once, especially when you have so many television shows out there, so many kid-oriented television shows out there, where the main protagonist is a male, or the main thing is always, or it's always a man who's saving the female protagonist, or whatever it is. So yeah, those are my feelings. And that concludes our discussion section. It's been a short discussion, unfortunately. You guys need to leave more comments, because I enjoy reading your comments. I enjoy having this discussion, and I want you to participate. Come on, come into the fold. If you've made it this far, as always, you're a boss, because I know that these videos are long, and I know I'm very hard to listen to. I'm slightly repetitive. But if you enjoyed it, again, like, favorite, subscribe. Leave a comment. We want to hear from you. And as always, I will see you next week and in the review.